Hey, Cleaning Nation, Mike Campion here with Lindsay Bjorklund. Today, we are going to talk about why most cleaning companies get stuck somewhere between this $10,000 to $25,000 range. I actually was funny. I didn't tell you this, Lindsay, before you came up with this theme, but I was doing the research and we found it's like 60%, so we help people, not a ton that are just starting, but some all the way up to millions and millions of revenue. So you think they're kind of being equal distribution. It's not. Shockingly enough, that 10 to 25,000 range per month is where people get stuck. So we want to just talk to you guys that are stuck at that level and get you help. So, and just quick background, this happens in every business at different levels. So there's kind of the 0 to like 5 or 6, or there's kind of, I'm doing the cleaning phase. And then so I'm stuck in the field is phase. Well, I have nothing. I'm in the startup is phase 1. I've got work and I'm doing a bunch of work, but I'm in the field by myself as phase 2. And then phase 3 is typically, I'm out of the field, but now I'm stuck in the office. And then phase 4 is I'm just stuck. Like, I don't know how to get to the next revenue level. And typically, this $10,000 to $25,000 revenue thing can happen at anywhere between steps 2, 3, and 4. Like sometimes people are still in the office or in the field a little bit, or when they get called in, sometimes they're just stuck in the office. And sometimes like, I kind of have some freedom, but I don't know how to grow. So the same problems that you deal with at 0 to 10K aren't the same at, kind of that 10 to 20, 25 that we're talking about today, which aren't the same as 25 to 50, 50 to 100, on and on. So all that to say, this is for you. And I think Lindsay got some questions from clients that she thought would align with this. So we're gonna do a hybrid of what to do when you get stuck, and ask Mike anything. So Lindsay, what's our first question as it relates to getting unstuck at this revenue level?
Yeah. Okay. First question is from Noelle. And she said, if we're trying to get to 30% profit, it would be $30 out of the $100 charged to the customer. Is that correct? Is she approaching this the right way?
I love that. So one of the big things that people get stuck at this level is their financial foundation isn't, they've got a $20,000 a month financial foundation, but $50,000 a month goals. And they think if I just get more clients, that's my problem. I can't get enough customers, but they really have a financial foundation that even if they did get more customers, they wouldn't make any more money. It could actually hurt them, not help them. So this is a perfect question to get clear on what the finances should look like before you scale. Because a lot of people have an unprofitable, broken business they want to grow. And it's like, no, let's make it profitable and healthy. And then the growth will happen a lot more naturally and more profitable. So it's a great distinction from Noelle. No, there's really, in the service business, actually in any bit, whether it's products or services, you've got a couple, we kind of want to break down. There's a couple ways you can do it, but I'll tell you how we do it for the cleaning business. There's cost of goods sold, which is what Noelle is talking about. How much does it cost to physically provide the service, right? Like if I have a pencil factory and it costs me $1 to make a box of pencils and I sell them for $2, my cost of goods sold is half, 50%, right? So with cleaners, it's the physical pay for the cleaners would be cost of goods sold. What it actually costs you to do the work. But there's other types of expenses that are not direct. Cost of goods sold can also be called variable cost or direct cost. And the other type of expense that we would worry about is fixed expense or indirect cost, which would be things like workers' compensation insurance, software, things that it doesn't matter how much. So basically with cost of goods sold, if I sell 100 pencils and it's about $1 a piece, my cost of goods sold is $100. If I sell no pencils, my cost of goods sold goes down to nothing. It's a variable cost. Fixed cost, if I have a pencil factory, my rent on my factory is going to be the same $5,000 a month, whether I make 1 million pencils or no pencils, right? So that's why we break that up is, so we know what our cost of goods sold is and what our overhead is. And the reason people get stuck financially is they think their overhead's way less than it is or should be. Like they go, oh, I don't have any expenses. And it's like, so you don't do any marketing? No, I don't. Okay, well, that could be part of why you're stuck. You don't have any software. You don't have any insurance. You don't have uniforms. You don't do team meetings where you might feed people. You don't there's just a bunch. You don't invest in any professional development for yourself or your team. There's like a lot of the things that require growth, require money. And if there's no budget for that, you can never grow. So to answer Noelle's question, the way we coach is 45, 25, 30. So 45 cents out of every dollar would go to cleaner pay. 25 cents out of every dollar would go to overhead, all the things not directly related. And then 30 cents out of every dollar would go to the owner.
Okay, I have a question.
That's why you're here.
Is there room, like a percentage where you can fudge it a little bit? Say it's like maybe your cost of goods sold are more like 47, 48%. Like, I guess my question is there a little wiggle room there? And if so, what percentage of wiggle room are we looking at?
It's a great question. So this isn't like I'm not Moses, didn't go up to Mount Sinai and like God said there shall be a 45% cost of goods sold. This is just after a lot of experience finding out what's optimal in terms of being able to grow, being able to stay profitable, being able to be competitive on how you price, pay your people competitively. All that works together for this. So this is a framework, not a commandment by any stretch. So y'all can run your business any way you want. My job, or our job as kind of coaches, is just to make sure you understand the consequences, unintended and intended, of those decisions. So the obvious consequences, say you have a 50% cost of goods sold as opposed to 45 and a 30% overhead as opposed to less, your profit goes from 30% to 20%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a 60%. That's like a 30% decrease. You're making a lot less money. It makes a big difference. And then again, if you're only doing 20 grand a month, the difference between 20% and 30% is $4 grand and $6 grand. And, you know, this is 2025 in America, depending on where you live, that could be the difference between like, I can actually, you know, depending on what your wife makes or where you live or your husband makes or whatever the case may be, but that could be the difference between like, we're living very poverty line and, you know, we're not getting rich yet, but we're here. So, you know, the difference between $4 grand and $6 grand a month in revenues or in profits, not small. So that's first, you have to just know what that means. And then second, if you want that 30% and you go over on the cost of goods sold, like, well, just know if you go over on one bucket, it's got to come out of another. So you have to pick, it's going to come out of the expense bucket or my profit bucket. So if you're, and again, a lot of people are like, I don't need the business to be profitable, I'm reinvesting in it. And what they're really saying is, I don't want to be disciplined and have hard conversations, do hard things. So no, you can fudge it, but the consequences are it's got to come out of a different bucket. So the profit bucket's pretty obvious, although a lot of us want to be we think it's some sort of a moral high ground to be like, I don't take any profit. Like we heard somewhere that, you know, most businesses don't make a bunch of money in the first 5 years. And we think like, that's what it's about. I'm reinvesting in my business. Like that's somehow a good thing. It's really not. I mean, reinvesting is fine. That's what the 25% is for. The overhead is really reinvesting in your business. But all that to say, if you just know there's a fixed bucket, when it's percentages, they have to add up to 100. So if your cost of goods sold is lower, that gives you extra money for you to profit and overhead. Those are both good things because they both allow you to grow. If your cost of goods sold is higher, well, you have to take away from profit or overhead. Both of those are what allow you to grow. So you're like, well, I don't need uniforms. I don't need liability insurance. I don't need software. I don't need coaching. I don't need whatever the case may be that you're trying to buy. It's like, okay. So if you wanted to maximize profit for the next month or two, maybe spend very little on overhead. But if you want to maximize growth in your business long-term, you're going to spend a little more. So no, there's no magic to it. Just know everything adds up to 100. And if you take it out of one bucket, or if one bucket goes over, it's got to come out of somewhere else, and you get to decide what makes sense for you.
Thanks for clarifying that. That was super good.
Sure, that's a good question.
Next up, we have Matt, and he said, what is the best way to handle scheduling? Like hire a VA? How do I handle it? He said, we have about 15 staff and a few dozen sites, and scheduling has become a bit of a nightmare. All customers are recurring. So the scheduling I'm talking about is mostly on the team side. So like sick days, holidays, replacing staff, that kind of thing.
Gosh, you did such a great job, Lindsay, picking the exact things that keep people stuck at this kind of 10 to 25,000 range in revenue. Because when you're doing 5 to 10, you can just kind of figure it out. And I think if you're going to get to 40, 50, you've got this locked down. So, or not locked down, but it's not a dumpster fire. So great question, Matt/Lindsay. So there's a couple pieces to this. One is, most of the time, and this is a lot of problems that we come up with, which is why I love doing this podcast. So you guys, you think it's problem A, and it's really a different problem. And you're like, I was focusing so hard on this software versus that software, and that wasn't even the real problem. So The right answer, well, I'll talk about the like hire VA or how to do that. But until you've got a good system, because typically what happens is we don't have a good system. We hate the schedule. We can't figure it out. So then the first thing that happens is like, no one else can get this. It's too complex. It's too crazy. And that's not the case. And we do scheduling for some of our clients. And it's funny. They'll come to us with this convoluted crap show or dumpster virus. And then they're like, and then they want us to do it like them. And then we're like, we don't have the kind of manpower. Like, that's insane. So the first thing we always do is like, here's how we do the scheduling. And they're like, oh, that makes more sense. Right. So, and then it's pretty easy. And they're like, oh, I guess it wasn't a big deal. So step one is to get it organized. Step two is to realize there are other humans that can do it. Like the people that we have doing it are just regular people. They're not magical. And they're like, you don't understand. They have to know my city and my streets. Our people that do the scheduling don't live in the same cities as our clients. So these are all things that are made up. So step one is let's figure out the system. When you say 15 staff and a few dozen sites, if you're commercial, that may be okay, depending on how big they are. If you're residential, we're way overstaffed. Love that you start with customers, right? So if it's mostly recurring, you're not getting a lot of call outs, which is, again, would be a residential problem. If you get paid in advance, you won't get that as much. Another key to getting unstuck is getting paid in advance. But when you start saying sick days, holidays, replacing staff, et cetera, 80% of the time, the problem is you're trying to get 6 gallons of water out of a 5-gallon bucket, right? What we think is fully staffed is not fully staffed, because what fully staffed means in our mind is if I don't sneeze and nobody moves and we don't get another client and nothing goes wrong and no one takes a day off and everything, all the stars align, then everything works perfectly. It's like, sure. And how many weeks out of 52 does that happen? Like 17, 4, like less than 52. That's for darn sure. So we've staffed for this perfect scenario that rarely happens. What we need to do is staff for reality, right? Which is people, if there's 15 people and everybody takes a week off a year, that's a third of the weeks are gone. Somebody's on vacation, and say people get sick as often as they whatever. And say there's a whole, like, we know that. And then other stuff like, if you've been doing this for a while, you'll start people don't realize, I'm going to point out to you right now. Oftentimes people quit in bunches, right? Like there'll be a 2 or 3 week span where like 5 people quit, or, you're like, what happened? And then people are like, well, how could have I foreseen that? And I go, when's the last time it happened? They're like 6 months ago. I'm like, what about before that? 4 months before. I'm like, okay, so you could have, we do. And here's the reality, Matt. And I love this question. That's why I'm spending a little more time on it, is oftentimes what we think is a scheduling problem is a lack of enough people problem. And what we think is a lack of enough people problem, we translate into people are lazy, or no one wants to work in my area, or crazy stuff like that. It's really a hiring funnel problem, which is the craziest thing. You're like, my scheduling's, and I promise we're going to talk a little logistics on the scheduling side, and Lindsay runs that team, so I'll let her add any, wisdom on that side. But that's typically, I found 20% of it. If you have more qualified people than you can hire wanting to do the job, scheduling gets to be real goddamn easy. And if you're like, you show me how to schedule 15 people worth of work with 11 people, because this guy's on vacation, this guy's sick, and this guy quit, this guy no called, no showed. Lindsay's got good systems, but none of them will, you just can't make, you need the parts, right? So
Mike Campion here. Do you ever listen to the podcast and go, this is great information, I just wish I could actually get it implemented, and I wish I could get some help? Well, we do that. If you would like either myself or my team's help actually coming up with a plan that's specialized to you and your business, because with these podcasts, obviously we have to be very general and we can only go 20 minutes at a time. If you'd like to jump on a call with myself or my team, go to growmycleaningcompany.com/talk. We'll jump on a call. There's no charge, and we'll help you get some absolute clarity around exactly what to do next and how to do it. The reason we don't charge for these calls is the plan that we come up with, people want help implementing that. If that's the case, we're happy to talk about it. And if it's not, that's okay too. We're happy to just help you come up with a plan. So if you want to translate the information you're learning here into an actual plan that can change your life, give us a ring, growmycleaningcompany.com/talk. Love to either myself or have one of our coaches walk you through and actually personalize the content you get here to where you're at with your business. Talk soon.
the reality is we're in the cleaning business. We're really in the business of selling. I mean, ideally we want to sell a result and an outcome and value, but what that looks like is to provide all that, it costs labor. So we think we understand we need good marketing. We need a good way to get clients, but we don't realize if I'm a pencil manufacturer, I understand I need a way to build a bunch of pencils. If sometimes the factory makes a lot of pencils, sometimes no pencils, sometimes it gets sick. Sometimes, people don't feel like penciling. Like I'm stuck, right? I can have all the clients I want. So it's clear in that regard. Well, I need to fix my factory, right? But when it comes to hiring employees, we don't understand. Like, we are in the business of selling labor, so we darn well better have a good system for buying labor, right? Like, if we're trying to sell labor at scale, we better know how to buy labor at scale. So what typically happens is the system and process we have for hiring may work for the little business for 10 to 20 grand when we're just kind of duct taping everything together, but it's not going to work for 50 or 100 grand. So the right answer is really having a repeatable, scalable, dependable hiring system that's always running. So you always have more qualified people than you need coming in. So I'll turn it over to Lindsay a little bit when it comes to, let's assume, Matt, because you said, most customers are recurring, so the problem's on the employee side. Let's assume now we've solved that and you've got more qualified people wanting to clean for you than you have time for them. Now the scheduling becomes a lot easier. And I'll turn that over to Lindsay because she's got a little more experience with she just handles that more day to day with our team than I do.
So funny. I knew the questions that were coming up in this podcast because I put it together and I didn't think, oh, I would handle some of this, but
see that one coming, did you?
Yeah. I'm like, I should have. I have thoughts, and this could be like 8 podcasts, but I think the biggest scheduling, I don't want to say mistake, but thing that causes the most confusion is, well, 2 things. You hit on one of them, Mike, is one, I'm the only person that can do it. And I just wanted to hit on that is a lot of times the reason people think that is because it's all up in their head. Like, they've never taken that information, put it down on a spreadsheet or an SOP and just looked at it. So the first thing we do for all the people we schedule for is we have 2 spreadsheets. That's it. We have the cleaners.
And this is people that have software.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're assuming you have some sort of idea, you have some sort of scheduling software, and you can get into which is better, which is whatever. Like, right at this point, check a box. You need some software that you don't hate. So let's not get into the weeds. But if you have no software, usually it's $0 to a couple $100 a month, depending on how big you are. Money well spent. Again, 25% overhead. There we go. Continue.
Yeah. Yeah. No, good point, Mike. This is for any software. It doesn't matter. You should organize what's going on in your company for Schedulize. So you need all your cleaners on one spreadsheet, their availability. I like to do red, yellow, green. So green team is like, your top rated cleaners. They're flexible. Yellow might be people that are brand new that are just doing working interviews. And red is like, they're on their way out. We're getting rid of them. They shouldn't be red for so long. And then we have
and again, the red even goes back to, I don't have a good enough hiring funnel to get, why would you have red? If you have more green people wanting in, and they're applicants, so we don't know if they're really going to be green, but we know the red's red. The applicant that looks green might be green. He might be red, but at least we got a shot. So I love that you've broken it down. I just want to, just like Lindsay kind of touched on, if you've got people are in the red, we want to go back to the hiring funnel. Sorry, keep going.
No, that's fine. And then the other sheet is all of your clients that you're cleaning for. Any special notes, just real basic. I think the biggest mistake I see is people just not getting organized and keeping it all up in their head. I had a second point, totally forgot what it was, but Mike, hopefully that was just helpful without getting too into the weeds. Get organized, get it out of your head and onto paper on a spreadsheet, even if you have scheduling software. That's number 1. And then once you do that, I guess my number 2 pointer is once you do that, you'll see that, it's really not that complicated. Scheduling, we make it out to be this big thing. And honestly, with our clients, it's always the thing that people, I don't know why they just get hung up on it. But we overcomplicate scheduling. That's my big takeaway, Cleaning Nation. You're overcomplicating scheduling. I guarantee it.
And we're going to try and squeeze one more in, but I want to give one more. I love this conversation because Lindsay is so much better at the logistical than I am on the scheduling. And I've got a better kind of overview of why some of these problems exist. And you said it perfectly. We overcomplicate. So overcomplicating is thinking it's harder than it is. Another way to overcomplicate it inadvertently is to not hold standards. So when you have customers that are like chip chop, bip bop, cancel this, do that, show up right here, do whatever, that means you don't have standards with them, right? So you can decide on what your standards are, but if the customer can just do whatever they want, whenever they want, and you don't run, and again, and you're like, well, how do I make them do what I want? Well, first of all, get them to pay in advance. Watch how compliant they become once they've already paid for it. And B, if they want something special, that's fine. Just make sure you charge them for it. So if like, we need someone here tomorrow, like, okay, well, we charge extra for, call plumber on Christmas and see if he comes out for his regular rate, right? Or to be here in an hour. There's people that'll do that, and you can do that if you like, just, and then you're like, well, how does that make it less complex? Well, if everybody wants everything and it's free, but all of a sudden you charge for it, only the people that really need you to be there tomorrow or right away do that. And now you've got extra money to solve the problem, right? So if people are like, I don't want to go out, blah, 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 blah. Oh, that's too bad. There's a $50 bonus on this one because the customer's paying it. Well, hold on, I might be available. Let's talk, right? So you have more money to solve the problem. So we don't hold standards on our clients. And then the flip side is we don't hold standard on our employees, right? So when our hiring funnel is weak, we're so used to like, oh my God, Lindsay can fog a mirror and she doesn't steal. Like, even though she only works every third Wednesday, if there's no full moon, like I just need her, and we have no standards. Once you have a hiring funnel, we have more quality people wanting to be a part of your party than you can hire. I don't put up with any of this full moon crap. So typically you're making it more complex because you're letting or cleaners will say, oh, I need 40 hours a week. So like, oh my gosh, I got to get in. That's a really difficult standard to hold because you're not always going to have 40 hours a week, right? So a lot of times the complexity comes from this chaos that you've created with what you'll tolerate from your cleaners and your customers. All right. We talked way too much because it was a big one, but I want to squeeze one more question on people getting stuck at this range so we can give everyone another tool.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we got Sasha. She says, my company has done residential move-in, move-out cleans, but I want to move into the commercial space. She's all set up. She's got Google pages, websites, all that. She just wants to get out of the move-in, move-out.
You know what we're going to do? I'm going to try and do two more because I peeked at the questions beforehand and I saw the one after this and I want to get them both. So the thing that gets people stuck is these are so good. That's why I want to make sure we jam them all in because these are such common problems for some of these are all levels, but they're just very poignant at that 10 to 25,000. You can't get unstuck. One of the problems people get unstuck with is they solve the wrong problem. So and it's a lot of residential think if they just move to commercial, that'll get them unstuck. And the reality is that's not going to make any difference at all, right? Like we have commercial clients, we have residential clients. I promise if commercial was the good one, that would be, we just coach everyone to do commercial, or we wouldn't take residential clients. So, we wouldn't do any move in, move outs. That's definitely going to hold you. It's very difficult. I don't know how many clients we have above 25 grand a month that have more than 0 to 15% of their revenue from move in, move out cleans. So the big thing that gets people stuck is they focus on the wrong things. So Sasha's so close. I do a lot of move in, move outs and I don't want to do them anymore. Spot on. So I need to move to commercial. It's like, fine, but I don't know that you need to move to, you know what I'm saying? Like, Lindsay isn't showing up this week, so I need to fire her. It's like, no, there could be another option that she's on vacation, or we just need to talk about how long of the notice she gives if she needs time. Like, it's probably just a conversation. So, I don't want to do move in, move outs, so I need to go to commercials. Like, whoa, hold on. There's a lot of space in between it. So before we hit the next question, I just want to make sure you're focusing on the right thing and don't just be like, if I just had commercial, if I just had a magic software, if I just had whatever, then that's going to solve my problem. Because if you are solving the wrong problem, doesn't matter how effectively you solve it, it's not going to be good. I quote Elon all the time saying the most ineffective use of time is optimizing a system that doesn't belong there. So Sasha, love getting out of move in, move outs. I would get crystal clear on exactly what your goals are. And this would be something you talk with a coach in a longer format and go, what client will best get me to my goals? I think that's a better question. So you're going, how can I get in a commercial? My response would be, be crystal clear on what your profit goal is, and then reverse engineer what client will best get you there. I promise it's not move in and move out. Could be commercial, could be residential, but make sure you focus on the right questions. A lot of times at 10 to 25, we focus on logos and websites, and I'm going to go into commercial. I'm going to get into a new territory. I'm going to go from W-2 to 1099 or 1099 to W-2. And we think these are magic things that are going to quote unquote fix us. We're focusing on the wrong thing. So make sure you're focusing on the right thing. All right. Time for one more.
Question. Brittany, how often do you guys have a rate increase with your clients? I'm going on 3 years with no increase. Is that about normal?
So good. So that's the reason I don't want to miss this. It's another reason people get stuck. It kind of ties back into that bad financial foundation, right? We've got a financial foundation when it comes to how we price. That's good for 10 to 20, 25 grand a month. It's just not going to do a good job for 50 or 60 or 70. So again, embedded in that question is some assumptions that are not helpful, or I would say even accurate. One, it has rate increases tied to a time frame. Like if Lindsay's been here for 10 years, she absolutely deserves a certain amount, but if she's been here for 10 minutes, she doesn't. But that has nothing to do with the price of tea in China. Lindsay deserves or doesn't deserve a price increase based on if she's profitable or not. So if I started Lindsay 10 seconds ago, I sold her my dollar pencil for 90 cents. I can't keep doing that every month. I need to raise her prices. Let's say I started Lindsay 20 years ago and I sold her my dollar pencil for $6 and my average client right now pays $4. Well, then why do I need to raise her price? Right. So we base our pricing on emotion a lot. Well, I like Lindsay. She's sweet. And I know her and her family are struggling. So I do it a little this, or she's whatever, or she grinds me on price. So she gets, like, we just do it based on emotion as opposed to math, right? Or she's been here super long time, or she just got here. I can't raise price, or I just raised prices before. None of this has anything to do with the price of tea in China. If you're going to have a profitable business, go from the 30% profit and the 45% cost of goods sold. So I'm going to look at Lindsay's cost of goods sold. And if it's too high, I got to raise her price. And if she quits, she quits. That's okay. So the kind of overreaching theme I'll give for this piece is don't make, whether it's scheduling or the financials, don't make decisions based on, here we go, data, not drama. Right. So it doesn't matter if I like or dislike Lindsay, if she's old or young, has the money or doesn't have the money. I need a certain percentage profit to be able to serve her. If she makes it, if I can do her, if she's a core values match and I can serve her at that profit margin, we go forward. If not, I need to raise prices. And if she quits, she quits. So I would disassociate timing. Well, it's been 6 years since I raised her price. Well, is she profitable? Oh yeah, super profitable. Then what are we doing? Or I just sired her up last week and she's wildly unprofitable. So we're going to wait 6 years? Like, just, hey, Lindsay, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. I thought it would take this. I'm a knucklehead. We'll do it for a month just because I'm not going to leave you high and dry. But if you want to go forward, here's the actual price. If you want to throw me out, I got it. If not, fine. So, all right, guys, gals, really, really good questions. I feel bad because I feel like I'm trying to jam 20 gallons of water into a 5-gallon bucket. Please, if you're stuck at this level and you're really like, I want to do something different, reach out. Let us have a real conversation one-on-one with you. We've got coaches, including myself, who will jump on a call, get you clear on where you're at, where you want to be, why you're stuck, and help you come up with a plan to get there. We don't charge for those. Lots of times people get on those calls, are like, can I pay you to help us implement that? We can talk about that. But if not, either way, you'll leave with a plan that's great. Just reach out. You can come on Instagram, email me, Mike@growmycleaningcompany.com. Grow My Cleaning Company. There's a ton. Just Google it. We're here. Reach out. We'll help you. Appreciate the time and attention. Talk soon.
Hey, Cleaning Nation, if you dug the content you just got, we don't do any ads and I don't sell anything on this podcast, but if you would just subscribe, rate, and review, it would be huge and I'd be so appreciative. Not only is it going to help me, but you'll help other owners of cleaning companies across the world work less, make more, and get profitable. So if you appreciate the value we give, again, subscribe, rate, and review. It would mean the world to me. I'd really appreciate it. And we sure appreciate your time and attention.